I didn't know you had an iPhone. I'm gonna have to change our relationship now. You got an iPhone.
Yours is always coming through green.
So you see how it's on the angle a little bit?
No, that's corny.
Yep, there you go. And turn it, yep.
This just keeps shifting.
No, that's good. Right there. Perfect. Cool.
You were recording that whole time.
So tell me.
You're recording right now.
Okay. 5 minutes or whatever. Because remember, I'm putting up the unedited videos, so.
So they'll see
Let's go.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, phones, silence. Look, mine wasn't.
Mine was.
Mine's silent.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is mine?
Yeah.
All right, you just put it on airplane mode.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Fucking ready.
Oh, God. Help us, Jesus.
Here it comes. You good? Okay.
Welcome to the Grieving podcast. I am your host, J.Nicole. Thank you for joining our weekly discussion around grief, mental health, and overall personal wellness. The Grief Bully podcast will serve as a vehicle to help you navigate life's journey. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the podcast with anyone in your life that you think it will help. Let's bully grief together.
What's up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the Grief Bully podcast. Today is Monday, October 21st, and guys, we are at episode 10. I'm super excited, as always. Nothing has changed this week, from last week to this week. We are back in the studio. I am not solo today. I do have a very special guest, someone that I like to call a sister, a good friend of mine. So we are going to get into some good topics today for you. Just want to recap briefly from last week. I was in here solo by myself talking about the if onlys will kill you. So if you have not already, I would encourage you to go back, download that episode, listen to that episode. If you had any regret in your life, anything that you wish you could change, especially when it comes to grief and loss, I definitely would encourage you to go back and check out that episode. We talked about how it was important to let go, forgiving yourself, so forth and so on. So yeah, go do that for me. And you will not regret it. If you do enjoy it, as always, leave a review, drop a comment, DM me, what have you. Okay, so now that we have the housekeeping out of the way, I am excited to introduce to you guys today my guest. My guest is someone that I think is a really cool person, very educated, insightful, dope personality, and we actually met at church. So we met at church, and we just had an instant connection, and it took us about a million months to actually hang out, but we finally were able to make that happen. So guys, I want you to welcome to the show today my special guest, Surera Ward. What's up?
Thank you.
So I ask every guest, are you nervous?
I am a little bit nervous.
It's alright. People have been a lot nervous and super nervous, but you know what? The way I like to see the show and how it's been going is just general conversation between two people on a common subject, just building and helping ourselves. And, your transparency, I'm sure today will help everybody pretty much heal and grow. And that's what we're going to do today. So, how long did it take you to get here?
Wow, coming from work, it took like an hour and 15 minutes.
Hour and 15 minutes. That's some serious commitment to come. And I got to tell you guys, I know this show is called the Grief Bully Podcast. And I was kind of a bully when it came to getting Shura to come out today as well. But, one day she hit me up and was just telling me, about a different perspective to offer on the show and just, some thoughts behind some of her life experiences. And I'm like, listen, you got to come on the show and talk about it. Yeah. And then she followed up by saying, oh, no, I'm a behind the scenes kind of person. I'm definitely not coming. I'm like, well, you are now. So listen, I'm excited to have you here with the Grief Bully. You've been following the show. You've been super supportive of me. And unfortunately, like a lot of us, myself, and our listeners, you've experienced some grief, and some loss. And I think that it's very important for us to continue to open up and have this dialogue, around the conversation. So today, I kind of like to have a topic or just like a flow of the discussion. I want it to be fluid. However, I just do have, we're kind of talking more or less around when burdens become a blessing. And I think that's pretty much, kind of the gist of the text that you sent me about when certain things in your life at that season look like a blessing actually become some of the, look like a burden, actually become some of the biggest blessings in your life. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? And then we'll just kind of jump into how grief has showed up in your life.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much. Amazing introduction too. Thanks for all
Woo-woo.
the amazing comments. My name is Shora. I'm from Trenton, New Jersey, born and raised.
Trenton, let's go.
Trenton, let's go. Trenton, born and raised. Trenton makes, baby. But I currently now live outside of King of Prussia in PA. I've been there for the last 10 years. I work in the IT profession, as well as I'm a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor.
Let's go. So we talk about a nice introduction. That was a heck of a plug. So I hope you guys are out there taking notes. If you need IT, serial entrepreneur, all of that, Shore is going to have you there. So I definitely appreciate, like I said, having you come here, jump on the show. So, let's just get into it. So how has grief, showed up in your life? We can talk about, a couple of your major losses, complicated grief. And then, I know we wanted to talk a lot about, the loss of your father and just how that kind of all came full circle with the whole, potential. Not say that I'm not going to just straight up call it a burden, but when, we have to be caretakers in certain things and make certain sacrifices in our lives, that's kind of how it could feel maybe at the time. I'm a side with you and co-sign that being there for my dad felt like a burden. It's not that I didn't want to do it, but it was a lot.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, for real. So let's just get into that. Like, talk about how grief has showed up in your life.
Yeah, when I was thinking about the question, it's like, for me, grief has showed up in many ways. And of course, I think there's different types of grief that have more traumatic experience on you than others. I've lost many family members, and some of the recent situations, loss of my father as well as my brother, I think those were kind of like the most tragic that I've experienced. But also another tragic experience that I had that grief showed up was about 10 years ago when I actually lost a job. Like, I was at that job for like 6 years, giving my heart, soul, and blood, and I got a layoff notice. And it's kind of like I had planned my career to be there, and I didn't know that I was grieving that particular job until like maybe 6 months or 8 months later. I began to go to therapy and was talking about it. And she was like, "You're experiencing grief." And I'm like, "What? Like, I lost my job? What do you mean I'm experiencing grief?"
Right.
Because, mostly, you're taught that grief only shows up when you lose a loved one.
Right.
Or, a pet or something like that, but not a job. So I'll say some of the biggest traumatic ones has been the job and my brother, and recently my dad.
Okay, so that's definitely a great point. I think I always try to say that on the show is that grief is the loss of anything in your life. We more or less talk about the loss of loved ones here just because I feel like, that's my God-given purpose and the mission here, but definitely a loss of a job, and identity. So once your therapist brought that to your attention and you're like, really, how did you come to like accept that, okay, actually I am grieving, this loss of my job? Like, what did that look like? Just because some people out there might have lost a job and then became like depressed or down and out and didn't really connect the dots that it had to do with, the loss of their job.
Yeah, definitely for me, it was just mostly about like, wow, it's amazing how we can, think we have these plans set out in life and we say we're going to do this in the next 5 years and do this in 10 years and work this job and grow and, go to upper management or, just become promoted and grow in a company. And it kind of like, for me, just brought it full circle that, like we have these plans and, in my opinion, God is in control. He has plans for us. And if we're not seeking him about the plans he has, we may not know. And then sometimes we do seek him with our plans. We still don't know.
Right.
But for me, it was just letting go that, being so rigid about my life at that time of like, yes, I want to be at this company for this amount of time. But letting go and kind of, just trusting God more, honestly. For me, I think that brought me closer to God, about 10 years ago. So that's kind of how I handled it. And I was like, all right, this job is going. But I think it taught me also going forward that, you can't rely on a company and depend on a company. Not to say you can't work hard and be a dependable, loyal worker, but you can rely to the point that it's your identity.
Nice. So that was a great answer to that for sure. And I like how much you talk about God and incorporate God in your message. And I think that I said that last week on this show. I was like, look, you guys might not be believers out there, but we're going to talk about God here, right? Because I'm a believer and we're going to do this thing. And I think that's true. Like, a lot of tragedy and loss and trials definitely bring us closer to God, or they can if you're open to it, right? And for me and my experiences, that's all I've had sometimes, where it's like, if I didn't have this belief of something greater than myself, I would be like, yo, what is the point? Like, what are we doing this for? Yeah, exactly. Like, how? Okay, so I get myself up again, something else knocks me down. You know, I was talking to myself today, yes, to myself, out loud. It wasn't internal thoughts, and I was just saying, like, what's up with your faith game? Like, your faith is in the basement right now. Like, you are just not showing up as yourself. So I understand, you know, when you go through those times, how you just got to grab onto something. And for us, it seems like we have that commonality that happens to be God.
Yeah.
So just kind of going into the losses of loved ones. On the show, I think we talked a lot when it comes to other people's experiences, just so much about the lowest points, the highest points, but I just kind of want to have a little bit more of a fluid conversation and just let you tell my audience and myself, you know, just enlighten us on your journey and what that's been, a little less structure. So, like, let's just rock out.
No, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me was, like, what made the loss of my father so tragic is because we didn't have a very close relationship. Like, up until I was, like, 12 years old, we were close. And then after 12, there was a break in our relationship. So we kind of had this on and off thing with our relationship. And then, you know, I'm 41 now, so probably, you know, by 35, you know, he's sick. And I'm like, all right, like, what's up? What you want me to do? Like, you know what I'm
right.
saying?
Like, keep it real.
All right, like, okay. So then I was like, you know, my mom always taught me, like, regardless, that's your father. So, you know, because I know she would want me to go check on him and do different things, you know, and I'm not saying we didn't talk, you know, through those years of not being close. We, you know, talked on holidays, let's say that. You know, so I just followed up with him. I was like, yo, Dad, what's going on? And last time I've been to doctors, you know, fast forward, you know, he was going to the VA doctor, which they weren't just expediting, you know, testing and different things like that. So I immediately just jumped in like, okay, this is, you know, crazy. Like, they're telling you got to wait a month for tests. So about 4 years ago, I just was like, all right, let's look into things further. And I began to take control and became basically his medical advisor, basically. And was like, all right, Dad, the VA, we're going to kill that. That's not working. He didn't even have insurance at the time. So applied for, like, Medicare, got him on Medicare, got him going to Princeton Hospital and getting tests going. And then I guess, you know, long story short, over time, he had, like, a tumor in his stomach, and it went from, like, 0 to 100 quickly.
Wow.
And some of the most challenging moments was taking care of him, and he wasn't always appreciative of it. You know, so it's like, I'm an hour away from you. I'm driving to see you, like, every other day. You know, I'm in work, I'm in school, like, you know what I'm saying? But yet I'm still trying to be here for you, and you're not being appreciative, and you're, like, pushing me away, but yet, you know, drawing me closer. So it was times where I was, like, angry at him. Like, yo, you tripping. Like, I don't have to do this. You know, and once again, for me, I've always been a person that has kind of, you know, seek therapy on and off. And once again, going to therapy, you know, she began to talk to me about, you know, you need to get some of the questions answered about the relationship with your dad and try to, you know, maybe not rekindle, but get some answers for yourself. So that made it extremely hard because I was like, all right, that's hard, but do I want to know the answers? So long story short, I began to get those answers. And I think what made his death most tragic is because through taking care of him for about 2 years, I saw him more in the last 2 years of his life than I saw him in my entire life.
Wow.
So we had broke a lot of barriers and things that we had in between us and really had some serious hard conversations within those 2 years. And it was like, really, God? Like, I finally understand him a little bit more, that, you know, some of the decisions he made of not being present, you know, wasn't right, but now I understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he wasn't my dad, I'd be like, all right, you know, dude, I get you, you know, but the pain of him not being there still hurt, but I was able to understand. Like, it wasn't just that you weren't man enough, it's like you didn't have the emotional fortitude to do it, you know, and it's like, wow, you know, so, you know, I was able to forgive him through that process, and we kind of just got super close over those last 2 years. And then, you know, it made it, traumatic when he passed away. Like, we thought we was at the point of the cancer getting better, and it just changed in like 30 days. And they were like, it's spreading all over his body. We can't do nothing.
Wow. That is, you said a lot there. A lot that I was trying to take mental notes.
Sorry.
No. You went in, and I think that for sure. I mean, you said a lot. And I think the thing that came up to me in that, and a question that I think popped in my head was, do you feel that you grieved your dad twice?
Oh, yeah.
So because you lost that relationship when he was alive,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had to go through this again. And I think that it just popped in my head like, wow, it seems like she had to
Oh, yeah.
grieve him twice. And I think a lot of people out there can understand that. I mean, if you've had those relationships that have been broken, and then you get them back. I have a similar story, like kind of coinciding with that. I mean, my dad and I were pretty cool, but we did get closer in his illness, not the cancer. He previously was diagnosed with another disease earlier on, and it was like, all right, Dad, like I became like the parent. I felt like okay, so this is how we're going to take our medicine today, and I had to get the emails from his doctor's appointments to my email address. You know, and then I ended up having, we'll get into that once we get deeper in your story, some of the if-onlys for me was when I backed up, and I'm like, man, he wasn't really taking care of himself, and I kind of put that on myself. But anyway, that's another story, but I just think that that's some of the things that I hear there is definitely about, you know, grieving him twice and just how difficult that could have been. Now, you said you had some in conversations that you were able to have. Were there any things that you felt were left like unsaid that you wish you did say, or like towards the 30 days did it start to get out of control, or you were good?
Nah, I was good. I mean, it's crazy. Like within that time, like we had some real hard conversations. Like we did some. He loved IHOP, so we would go to IHOP and have these serious conversations. You know, in IHOP,
whatever it takes.
Wherever it takes, right?
Yeah.
I don't even like IHOP like that, but we would have those conversations, and it's just like I thank God that I had the courage, you know, and I had a therapist who kind of was pushing me to get these questions answered, because of course at those moments I didn't think he was going to die, you know, so it's like had I not asked those questions, you know, he could have died and I didn't get the answers, so I would have, you know, he would have died, I would have been feeling some kind of way, you know.
Yeah, that's very true.
That he died, so it's like, you know.
That's definitely very true. I mean, I think one thing that you've said, and that's been a common theme here on the show, is that I think most of our guests, I'm thinking back to all the guests, they all have a therapist, and they've had a therapist, and that's a very, very big part of their healing. Yeah. And that's, again, why the Grief Bully podcast, this is just a bridge. Like, my ultimate goal is to get everybody out there that has dealt with grief, loss, their mental wellness is not where it needs to be, is to go and seek therapy and get the help, because she helped you, you know. I mean, obviously you had to have the courage, because just because someone tells you or advises you to do something doesn't mean that you have to do it. Yeah. But you did it, and look what it did. It gave you some moments in your life that you may have not otherwise, you know, had the opportunity to do. So thank you so much for sharing that part of it, and I'm sure we definitely can circle back, and I know that was a tough loss, and we definitely extend our love to you in that regard. And you said you also had your brother.
Yeah, so it's crazy, like within a year of them, within a year they both passed away.
Wow.
And I think that even, you know, created a level of selfish hurt, because I was also planning my wedding, and who wouldn't want their brother and their father there? So for me, one side was like, wow, I reconciled with my dad. I hope he can now be there at my wedding, because at one point that wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even an option, you know. So it was like, you get excited about one thing and then it kind of turns around. So with my brother, he was living out in Texas, and you know, he died in a car accident. But you know, we had plans of like moving to the same city. You know, we talked like every day. You know, it was like we were just super close, and it's like, of course, when you're talking to your siblings or whatever every day, you don't think that, you know, they're not going to be there tomorrow. You know, so it was just like one of those tragic deaths of like, you get a phone call and you're like, what? No, this is not real. You know, this is a dream. I'm going to wake up and somebody's going to tell me like it's not real.
Right.
You know, so I think, you know, it was just tragic. Like, we were just talking about my wedding. Like, we were just talking about, you know, the next 2 or 3 years that you're going to move here, I'm going to move there. And it's like, you know, what do you do with those plans and those dreams you have together? What do you do with those emotions and, you know, just processing is like, yo, wait a minute, you know. You know, like you said, without God, it was kind of like, what am I going to do now? Like, he was like my brother and my best friend.
Yeah, that's a lot. And guys, you're out there, again, we're always inviting you to the table, so I hope that you feel like you're sitting here in a seat with us, having this dialogue. Sure's going in right now and becoming really transparent and sharing these topics, and I'm over here shaking my head, and I'm realizing that those who are listening to the audio part, can't see that, but it's so much that you said about tomorrow. And tomorrow not always being here, and so even though we're talking about our grief and loss and your experience, when we talk about the people who are listening, even for ourselves, like, I hope we can understand more, like, complain less and remember how blessed you are, because not to make you feel bad, at my wedding, my dad was there, but wait for it, he was extremely intoxicated, and when we were walking down the aisle, he was, like, basically, like, falling. And he was also had lack of oxygen and problems happening. So, like, I was, like, livid, like, on fire. Like, I mean, like, I thought my head was going to blow off my neck. I couldn't even think straight. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, I was going to cancel the dance. I was like, I don't even want to dance with him. I don't even want to be near. We didn't even let him walk through when they introduced people. So it was, like, crazy. And then I was like, you know what? We're just gonna have to do this dance. I told the DJ, I said, cut this song in half, like straight up in half. Yeah, like, I'm gonna give him his little moment, because of that exact thing. So not to make you feel bad, but just to show people, like, again, when a burden becomes a blessing. So it's like, this was like something that I thought was my worst nightmare. But when I have conversations with people who unfortunately didn't even get that, it's like, all right, like, you gotta, be be a little bit more grateful. I mean, even like what you were saying as far as your dad, how, taking care of him and coming over here and doing all those things was, again, it felt like a burden, but it became, your blessing. So that's the common theme today, it's talking about that. So when you lost your brother, I mean, do you have any other siblings, or how did that, okay, I just was curious about the picture, if that was your only sibling, or, how that went. And so did you have to, like, go to Texas, or?
No, so he's actually born in Virginia, so the funeral and everything was held there. Okay. In Virginia, and then I guess the crazy part about that is I was also in grad school, so we literally drove to Virginia for the funeral, came back, and then the next day I had to graduate.
Wow.
And at that point in my life, it's like, this degree, like, none of this matters, but for the sake of completing and, walking, for my family and just of doing it. But it was just like, none of this matters.
Yeah, and I think that you're quote crazy right now. Like, you're dropping so many gems that, like, the quote nerd in me is like, wait, how am I going to remember everything that she's saying?
You got to replay it.
Yeah, true. I'm going to replay. I'll be taking notes on my own thing. Like, well, she said at time marker this, because you're just saying so much. You talked about none of this matters. And I think that we get caught up in everything matters, is so important, is so crucial, but there will come a time in your life where none of this matters, and so with that being said, how has this shaped your grief? So how has your grief and all of these things changed you today as, like, the woman that you are today? You've said a lot of great things, but just losing your father, losing your brother, losing your job and your career, but yet you're still here and you're still smiling, and you're also still willing to share with our audience and help us grow. So, like, what helped you to develop to that point? I mean, I know you speak about therapy, but, like, how has it shaped you as a person?
I mean, I would say totally. Of course, building resilience, and that I can accomplish things I didn't, because I would have never thought, like, if you can imagine, I started grad school, a 16-month program, in the height of my dad being his cancer. So it was like, his cancer got bad, and 2 weeks later I was in a grad program, and I was like, okay, I'm done, I'm not doing this, like, I'm quitting the grad program because my dad is more important. And I thank God for my wife, because she was like, babe, he will want you to continue, because regardless of what's going to happen with him a year later, if he's here or not, you need to get done. And, it took me a long time to even go, because I wanted to go, I didn't want to go, whatever. But she was like, if you stop, how long is it going to take you to get back started? So I think going through that with, him passing away and the cancer, as I'm starting the program and taking care of him and going back and forth, and, one of the blessings came out of that. Like, I got laid off from my job. So,
and that's a blessing.
And that's a blessing.
Let's talk about that.
It's a blessing because it allowed me, like, to focus on taking care of him and school. That to have the job and in school and taking care of him would have been extremely hard.
Right.
Did it cause a little bit of financial struggle and setback? But if I could do it all over again, I would. because it allowed me to take care of him and go up and see him every day and not be like, okay, I gotta take off work, I gotta talk to my boss,
Right.
I gotta see if I can get off, and which it turned into, because I was taking time off, that they ended the contract and said, okay, let's not renew. But it was one of those situations that I was hurt at first because I thought about the money, but I was like, wait a minute, we got a little bit of money, we're gonna get some unemployment,
Right.
we're gonna be all right.
Right, talk about it.
We're gonna be all right, we're gonna make it through this.
Right,
We
we're
gotta
gonna
cut
make it
back a
through.
little bit, but it seemed like it was something bad, but it was not bad at all.
Yeah, so again, you just echoing the same sentiments, man, that like when that burden becomes a blessing, or when that door shuts and you're like, what? But then like God shows you in that next season, this is exactly why that happens, so that you can now pivot from here or do this and that. So, I mean, we're shedding so much light here. So what I want to do before we go into our final couple questions for you, I do want to jump into our In Loving Memory segment. So our In Loving Memory segment is a part of our show where it's very, very important to us here on The Grief Bully to humanize and to show love to those people who have gone on. I know a lot of times we feel like people are gone and forgotten, right, by other people and ourselves, and we just get caught up in the mix. So for me, it was important, like, you know what? Let's shout people out, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I want to do today is I'm going to shout out in loving memory to William Moody and author Stephenson Jr., your folks, right? And so we want to show love and just send our condolences and sympathy to your family. Although these losses have already occurred previously, it's been some time. I don't think it can ever be an expiration date on sending love, right? And just showing that, and it's important. So, we just want to send our love, and I'm sure that you miss them dearly. And I'm also sure they're very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. So, for whatever it's worth, right? So, definitely our Love and Memory segment, guys. It's a part of our show. If you are interested in having someone shout it out on our show, please don't hesitate to email me at thegriefbully@gmail.com. Subject line In Love and Memory. And we're also adding to our Instagram page. There's going to be a post that has like In Love and Memory and the person's name. Taking it a step further, right? So then we can just add the families in there. We want to show love to our bereaved folks out there. Let them know that you are not alone. Okay, so our Inspirational Boost segment of our show is a part that I really enjoy and I really like. And that is brought to us by our sponsors, Adina J Designs. They make, create, and inspire decorated apparel, wood signs, custom tumblers. I mean, I can go on and on, but you can just go to the Instagram page and follow them and find out a little bit more about who they are. You can follow them at Adina J Designs, ADENAJAYDESIGNS. Guys, I have messed it up more times than I like to admit. You may not have heard it, but that has missed an I multiple weeks. So I just wanted you to know that, guys. Go follow them over there. Our Inspirational Boost is a part of our show where we like to give you a quote, thought-provoking, or just some insight for the week. Our show does come out on Mondays. So this week's quote is, keep your face always toward the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you. And that's by Walt Whitman. Do you have any insight on what you might feel that is? I can read it again. Any feedback on that? So keep your face always towards the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you.
Definitely. I mean, I think, always going forward and not going back, that, you will be strengthened in time. I know it sounds cliche that they say that, wounds heal in time. And I would say that, the grieving may get better over time. That, you never stop grieving, in my opinion.
My opinion as well.
It's a lifelong thing, but it does get better. That every day gets a little bit better, but then you have some really bad days, and then you have some good days. But hopefully overall it gets better, and you learn to cope with what I like to call your new normal.
You're talking about, that's going to be a whole other episode, and I might bring you back just for that. I want to talk about the new normal, because that's where a lot of us definitely struggle. So before we get out of here, I have asked our guests, and I'm curious for you, if you had to choose a color for your grief, what would it be? And guess what? You cannot choose black, because that is a universal mourning color, so you got to choose something else. Let's go.
Nah, I think definitely it has to have a level of black. So I would say like a crimson, dark purple.
Stop. I gotta stop. I am done with my guess. Why can't we say the crayon box colors? What's your color? What is it?
It's like a crimson purple. Like
Crimson purple.
I don't think it was. Well, see, I grew up in the crayon box where it was 16 colors.
Okay.
Nowadays they got the 128 color
So yeah,
box.
y'all coming from the 128 color box. Okay.
I'll
So
say
the
deep
crimson,
purple. Deep
the
purple.
crimson purple, I like that better. So what is that? Explain that to us.
I think because, there were a lot of dark moments, and I think, over time, like I said, there's healing. And for me, like, just a color of like royalty and grace, being purple, it kind of just ties it in and makes me feel like, it's more purple than not so dark.
Mic drop. Wow. Like, I have the best guess ever. That was dope, and I love the color of your grief. I would actually like to see that. I'm going to make you do a drawing, and I'm going to put it on my Instagram of a picture with crimson purple.
Okay, I can
All right,
find it.
you
Okay,
got
I'm
it.
not going to draw, but I can find you a picture.
Yeah, yeah, tech, right? We're not going to draw. So before we get out of here, just two things that you would leave our audience with, our listeners, something to encourage them, help carry them. Our shows come out on Mondays, so just something through the week when it comes to their grief journey based on your experience. And I'll let you off the hook for this episode. But yeah, just if you could drop two things that you would leave them with.
Awesome, thank you. I think the biggest two things, guys, is one, spend time with your family and friends and your loved ones. I mean, we all, everybody's wearing the banner of grind.com, don't sleep, don't eat,
Right.
ball till you fall, whatever. But I feel like at the end of the day, we claim that, God or our family are most important. But if you look at your daily schedule, your monthly schedule, are you spending time with the people that you say are most important? Because I'll admit, I always didn't. And sometimes now I still struggle, but spending time with your loved ones and making them the priority that you say they are, even if it's a 5-minute phone call that you can't go and see them every day, but making it important to make phone calls. And I would say the second thing would be forgive more and judge less.
I love that.
Because sometimes, we judge a person based on a decision they made, but we don't know their story, we don't know their thoughts, we don't know their perspective, and sometimes we paint a story of why they did something, and that isn't the reason why they did it. For years I felt my dad was a coward because he didn't, step up to the plate, doing certain things, but I realized he was just a hurt man who never got help.
Wow, you are preaching. So, like, we met at church, and now you're preaching.
Stop it.
I don't know what kind of mantle we might have on our lives. I've heard that often. But so listen, you have been an amazing guest, someone that I hold near and dear to myself. I'm blessed to have you in my circle, someone to go to. You've been a mentor to me, and you've been a mentor to my audience today. So we thank you enough. Oh my God, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being on the show, guys. Listen, we are wrapping up episode 10. I want to tell you that we are going to be launching our Patreon, where you can be a supporter of our show. Patreon, trust me, just follow me on Instagram. You'll learn more about it. I will have information about that in our show details when this show goes up. So anybody who's ever said, yo, I want to support you, how can I support you and show love? I got a great way for you to do that. And you will get something in return. It's not all about us, right? But we got to continue to help allow this show to grow. Guys, I am your host, J.Nicole. You already know. Follow me on Instagram. I hang out over there so much to the point where I think I need to take some time off, but I'm sure I won't. And I've gotten to TikTok recently, so that's just going to be a whole nother thing. But follow me on Instagram at I_AM_J.Nicole. You already know, guys. As always, love and light. Peace.
Real quick. I'm going to press record.